Tom Shillue, comedian, Fox News contributor. And by the way, a man whose tour dates and tickets you can check out at tomshillue.com. What is up, Tom?
I love starting with the plug. That's the best way to do things. And,
Absolutely, man. You don't throw it in at the end as a footnote or an addendum. You put it out there right at the top.
Now, Will, I'm listening to you. I don't do avocado toast, but I'm realizing most of my hobbies and likes are probably coded left, okay? Hot yoga.
Yeah.
Hot yoga class, I love it. It's very good.
No doubt.
Hiking.
No doubt.
I'm an outdoorsman, but I don't do like snowmobiles and I don't do motorboats. I do sailing and I like hiking. You tend to run into left-wingers out there.
So, Tom,
yeah,
you're getting it immediately, and a lot of viewers don't, right? They don't get it. They think I'm saying they're on their left. Here's another. I like hiking. My wife loves hiking, so by extension, I have to like hiking. But I actually do when we do it. I know you're exactly right. Hiking codes left.
Yeah. Yeah, but I always feel like it's, and I want to be like I like those guys. I like the snowmobile guys. I like the ATV guys. But when I'm out in nature, I don't like the motor sports. I like the quiet. That tends, that's like, what's that is like. It's like the left wingers, right?
Right. I mean, anybody watching or listening who kind of still doubts what I'm getting at, I just ask you this. All right. You show up to the base of some foothills on the edge of a range, and there's two guys there. One is dressed in the padded costume thing that they wear for dirt bikers, and he has a helmet.
Yeah.
And he's pulling off a dirt bike off of a truck trailer. And you look at that guy, and you think, does that guy like Donald Trump? On the other hand, there's a guy over here walking up with his socks pulled up to his calves, some high top hiking boots. He's got one of those backpacks with the thing that comes around the front that he can drink water without ever even having to take anything out. He can just sip a Camelback as he goes. And you say to yourself, does that guy like Donald Trump? Now, it may not be fair, but if you're being honest, you know which way you're placing your bets.
Yeah. And it's guys like you and me, I think it's sometimes you're surprised by it because you'll go to Austin or you'll go to some place and you're in some kind of liberal neighborhood. I was in San Francisco recently, and you don't expect to be recognized because you don't see the Fox News viewers there, the Gutfeld viewers. But then I'll go into a coffee shop and I'll see somebody with tattoos and I'll just make my order. I think I'm going to be anonymous. And they look at me and they say, I watch you every night. And I'm always surprised when I see the tattoo guy watches Gutfeld. Because that's the opposite. He codes left, but he's right.
Oh, man. I love the surprises. I like to think at times you and I are surprises as well in the way that we're sending out our messages out there, but it also applies to your dog breeds. All right, Tom Shillue with us here on Will Cain Country. I want to run through some of these people, Tom, on a whole host of issues here, actually, from Texas redistricting to the National Guard taking on D.C. police. And I want to get to you some of the response that you're hearing out there. So first of all, this is from MSNBC, and I can't pronounce this guy's name. I think if somebody even said it to me, I wouldn't be able to repeat it back. But he has a haircut a little bit like the kid in the Incredibles, or the bad guy kid in Incredibles. It's standing up on end. It looks like a flame. In this guy's
Buddy,
case,
don't call me buddy.
Big bright silver. A big bright silver flamed buddy. Here he is on MSNBC.
D.C. does have one really big crime problem, which was the January 6th insurrection incited by the current president of the United States. And his first act in coming back was pardoning all the people who tried to overturn constitutional republic order in Washington, D.C. When I go to D.C., I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid of losing my vote. I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid that my children's freedom to breathe will be stolen in a world where climate change policy is non-existent.
Amazing.
The responses to this, Tom, are amazing, by the way. It's stuff like, that's exactly what I'm afraid of when I'm walking down U Street at 1 a.m. Climate change beating me over the head and sending me to the hospital.
That reminds me of an old Chris Rock bit, very early Chris Rock. But he talked about, when he's in a bad neighborhood, He doesn't look over his shoulder. He's not afraid of the media. He says people blame the media for this, and he's like, I've never been attacked in the late at night by the media. And this guy is. I heard these two sound bites separately. I heard the first part about January 6th yesterday, and then I saw the video of this guy this morning talking about what he's worried about. And it's interesting because a guy, Jonah Goldberg, who kind of annoys me sometimes on Twitter, but he made a great observation that this guy talks the way that characters from the West Wing talk. Like, it's not real politics. It's a TV idea of what politics is. So he says when he's in D.C., he's worrying about, climate change, everything. It's not really true. That's the way that Aaron Sorkin wishes people thought in D.C., but it's not the way real people think.
No, it's not. He said that he's mostly worried about losing his right to vote and climate change, and he once again invokes January 6th. Others have pointed out, oh my God, like the man who's in the White House is one of the biggest felons in there for cracking down on crime, 34 felons. And again, somebody else said, that's another thing I'm terrified of when I'm walking the street late at night, somebody classifying expenses as legal expenses. That's exactly what I'm terrified of. Yeah. The accusation of what Donald Trump did in New York. No, man, we're worried about carjacking and assault.
Yeah, and put it up. I mean, if he wants to take January 6th with such a silly example, but I'll take it. Take January 6th and take the people who were there and even the bad things that happened there, the broken windows and people getting hurt and whatever. Put it all up against the street crime of D.C. Yeah, we'll take it. Of course, January 6th pales in comparison to the street crime of D.C.
Right. That is absolutely true. Okay, it's not just flame-haired buddy on MSNBC. It is people who, have at one time maintained office but lost several times since. It's Beto O'Rourke, who we played yesterday, but he's on a tour of dumbfounding statements. I think this is called Netroots. Netroots must be the place they all go to say the most outlandish things on the left. And here, he triples down when talking about redistricting on, and by the way, triples down and reveals the id. Is it the id that exists below the ego? What he truly believes about rules and power.
We are in a basketball game right now, if you'll excuse the metaphor, where the refs have left the arena. And the other side is just clobbering the shit out of us, just punching us in the face, kicking us in the nuts. And we're kind of throwing our hands up and we're asking the crowd, the people of America, hey, do you see what's going on here? This is unfair. This isn't the rules that we agreed to play by. Well, who cares about the rules right now? Punch back, kick back, dunk over their heads, and win some power.
Wow.
There you go. Who cares about the rules? Win some power. I mean, I actually think that's what we've been saying is their driving ideology for like 10 years. And now, after being called conspiracy theorist, you hear it straight from the mouth of Beto.
And don't they admit, Democrats will admit they've engaged in redistricting and gerrymandering and this kind of thing. They're experts at it. My home state of Massachusetts, if you look at the map, it's all blue. Now, when I go home to Massachusetts, I see those ATV guys and I see those duck hunters and I see those guys with their pit bulls and Dobermans, with their Trump hats on that are coding right. There's entire towns that are right wing. Well, why don't we see that on the map? Why don't we see a red area or a pink area? Because all the right wingers have been redistricted out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, not one congressman to reflect that Doberman guy in Massachusetts. This is my point. The pit bull lady, that's who it is. It's the pit bull lady. She is well represented in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We'll get to that here in a little bit. But Beto's not done, Tom. He's not done. Here is Beto on really what's driving all of this in the end, which is it's like they've all been watching a soap opera and they've bought into the plot, and the only story they ever care about is Donald Trump is Hitler. Watch.
Remember, Donald Trump promised us he would be a dictator on day one. He promised us that if you vote in the 2024 elections, that's the last time you'll ever have to cast a ballot. It took Hitler just 53 days to destroy German democracy. At every major turn, every time he exceeded his authority, defied the German Constitution, broke down the rule of law in that country, the German press, The German politicians, the German public, most importantly, did too little, too late.
Wow.
Man, Beto really is. He does the worst version of everything. You know what I mean? The one that's already been debunked, the one that's already been retired, the one that's already been fact-checked. Like, that's his song, man. Donald Trump said he'd be a dictator on day one. Donald Trump said if you vote for him, you'll never have to vote again. I mean,
yeah, it was almost like,
why is this guy still around?
Well, that's
why do
the
we
thing.
still have Beto?
I'm trying to think of his analogy because he said, forgive the analogy, and then he compared it to a basketball game where the refs have all left the stadium, right? How about Beto's career is like a guy who has never scored a basket, and somehow he keeps getting drafted, and he's on, he's on your team, and you're thinking, like, has this guy ever done anything to help this team score? No, but why do we keep him around? And so he's worried about democracy when he's engaged in democracy, and he keeps losing. The guy's never won an election, but he still has the, he has donors. So it's the money keeps coming to Beto, and now he basically just runs, I think, a PAC, right?
Tom, let's figure out why. Let's figure out why real quick. This is just for fun, okay? Dude has lost 3 times. Everything. Yeah. Governor, Senate, presidency. And to your point, he still is taken seriously. He still has some kind of, I don't know, credibility on the left. Why? Let's just kind of, are you Gen X, Tom?
Yes, I'm Gen X.
I'm Gen X.
I'm a little older Gen X. I went to high school in 1984. That was my graduating year.
Let's just clarify that.
Yeah. I'm like Gutfeld. I'm the Gutfeld era.
But we are both Gen X.
Yeah.
Is Gutfeld a Gen Xer? I think he's a boomer.
I think
right.
I think he's
he
is a Gen Xer because it is 65 to 80.
He seems like a Gen Xer.
Yeah, it's 1965 to 1980 birth year, and Greg is 65.
Okay, well, so Two Days just said Gutfeld is 64 years old.
No, I'm seeing 1964.
What does that mean?
Oh, 64?
1964.
Okay, he's a boomer.
Oh, he's born in 64.
Yeah. I thought because he's basically a year older than me, Gutfeld, and so I thought he was 65 because I'm 66. I was born in 66. You don't want to it gets confusing.
Everything about Gutfeld, by the way, reads Gen X. Like, he doesn't read boomer, he reads Gen X.
Right.
He codes. How about that? He codes Gen X.
And listen, he codes left as well. I mean, this is a guy who was like, he's a fan of the Cramps, and he wore Clash T-shirts in high school. He went to school in San Mateo, so he's Northern California. He was in school with Barry Bonds and Tom Brady, and he was your typical leftist until college, and he started to drift rightward.
Yeah, you're totally right that he codes left. I think he would admit that, right?
Yeah.
By the way, he crushed it on Fallon. How about the ratings, right?
Unbelievable.
I mean, the Fallon ratings, the highest they've been in a year, still lower than the Will Cain show. We should just clarify that. Much lower, actually, than the Will Cain show. But that's not the point. The point is it was a high watermark for Fallon.
Yes.
I mean, it says something about culture.
It does.
America.
Greg is willing to give some credit to the Jonas Brothers, but he is taking some credit for himself. That was, kind of a juggernaut. Jonas Brothers to open the show, and then Greg Gutfeld. And, to be honest, I think there is a certain amount of crossover between Jonas Brothers because their audience, it's not 17-year-olds anymore. It's people who were once 17, but now they're 35. And I think those same people are tuning into Gutfeld at 10 o'clock. And this was huge. For Greg, it was huge for Jimmy Fallon. Look, I've been on Fallon 20 times myself, but I'm not the cultural figure that Greg is. Greg is a major conservative who's known for being conservative. Jimmy has him on the show. And the real story for this, Will, is not that Greg is making all these headlines and Jimmy Fallon got great ratings when Greg was on the show. It's that they are still at BuzzFeed. I printed out the articles for Greg. BuzzFeed, Vulture, and the Daily Beast are still writing hit pieces. So they're trying to shame Jimmy Fallon. They're saying Jimmy Fallon kisses the conservative ring. Oh, Jimmy Fallon, he's like an enabler of right-wing, whatever. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. A couple of years ago, the Daily Beast would write a hit piece on you, and you would kneel down and say, I'm sorry. It doesn't work anymore. That's the story.
From what I hear, Tom, the Daily Beast is writing a piece right now about I cut the interview short on James Tallarico. Completely false. The Daily Beast isn't to be taken seriously. And to your point, I don't think anybody does, right? Like, I mean, it has no cultural power whatsoever.
Yeah, but they
And by the
did.
way, I don't think Vulture does.
No,
Yeah.
but they used to. I'm telling
did.
you, when I was hosting Red Eye, they would, things would happen on the show and they would write a hit piece on it and take it out of context. So we did have some controversies and people had to, they would go around, they call people, they phone them and they say, did you hear what this guy said on this show? That's unacceptable. We'll never book him on our show again. So they engaged in essentially, what do you call it? Like in the cancel culture, and it worked. And it worked on people like me. And I had one foot in show business back then, and I had casting directors who said, we can't work with that guy anymore. That doesn't happen anymore.
Okay. All right. I have not forgotten that we're talking about Gen X Beto. That's where I was headed, but we're going to come back to that. Trust me, I understand the weave. I understand how to weave. I've taken lessons from President Donald Trump. Actually, it comes naturally. But talking about the cultural power and cancellation, now I want to ask you about Sydney Sweeney for a moment, because this came up, Tom. I think it's a YouGov poll, and it showed only 14% of people actually were upset about the Sydney Sweeney ad and suggesting she's somehow a Nazi now, right? She's into eugenics. So I've heard people say this, Tom. Sometimes I use as my barometer these lefty sports broadcasters in Dallas, Texas, who kind of, for some reason, historically at least, got to define what is mainstream culture. And they were making the point, nobody actually cared about Sydney Sweeney. And that the implication being that the right manufactured it as outrage bait, rage bait.
The right did?
Nobody cared. That's what the suggestion is. Like there weren't a significant percentage of Americans who actually cared. You found internet trolls, you found TikTok comments, and so forth. That's not true, by the way. It was laundered with credibility through mainstream figures. It was absolutely done so. Now, even that's the case, and only 14% actually were upset by Sydney Sweeney's ad, my argument is 5 years ago, that 14% controlled the culture. That it was always a radical minority. It always was. You not getting the Hollywood casting thing, the power of Vulture or whatever. It always was representative of a minute fraction of America, but it carried cultural weight on X or wherever else, right? And that's how we got these radical points of view. And I was at ESPN, Tom, and it's like, okay, I'm saying something I know not to just be rational, but most people believe. And this dude's over here saying that women should be in men's sports or men should be in women's sports and acting like that's the position of normalcy.
Yeah.
My point is, on the Sydney Sweeney thing, the story now is that 14% don't have power. But never forget that 5 years ago, they had all the power to define our culture.
Yeah, and when people did polling after that Sydney Sweeney thing, people would write these kind of think pieces on it, and they would ask people, they would say, Sydney Sweeney was talking about genes and using coded language that reflected the idea of eugenics, which was popular in the early 20th century. Do you agree with the idea of eugenics? And people would say, no, I find it offensive. And they would say, people offended by Sydney Sweeney. You see? So they engineer this thing. They talk to people. They get their feedback. And then they, because the articles that mentioned this Sydney Sweeney thing, they didn't say, oh, this is an ad for jeans where she used, a homophone for jeans and everyone got the joke. They said Sydney Sweeney was advocating eugenics in her commercial. Do you agree or disagree? I mean, it's crazy.
It is crazy. All right, this takes us full circle with Tom Shillue. Why do you think Beto is still a thing? I'm genuinely fascinated by this. And when he came out, there was this famous photo of him, and I can't remember if it was in Texas Monthly or Vanity Fair, and he was out in the Texas countryside with a pickup truck and a Labrador Retriever.
Yep,
He was
Vanity
wearing
Fair.
a shirt like I'm wearing now, I think. Maybe something like that. He looked like, one could argue he looked Kennedy-esque in some way, a Texas version of Kennedy-esque. He also had this Gen X vibe, right? Didn't he used to skateboard out onto the stage here and there? And it was like, oh, he's so cool. And it's like the image was so compelling to the left. Like they loved that Gen X Beto. It's like a CD back in the day when we bought CDs. Like the cover art was so awesome. Everybody thought this is going to be amazing. And then the music, the CD itself, sucked, right? It was awful. And I think that they're just still caught up in the CD art. They're still caught up in the image of Beto in some way, even though clearly he's a loser.
Yeah, I think it is, you said Kennedy-esque, that's really a key to this whole thing. Democrats knew they had a savior in Obama, okay, because this was Obama, this was a guy, and he could appeal to a broad swath of Americans, and of course he did. He got elected twice, right? They are looking, because they still think that people on the right and people from Texas, conservatives, are racist. And so they're looking for someone who embodies that kind of energy of Obama, but because they think the right is racist and they will never embrace another black or ethnic candidate, they're looking for that white guy, that Kennedy-esque guy. And think of Beto as a startup. He was like a startup that got a lot of money put on him. People put a lot of bets on him. That's why he got the Vanity Fair and he was on Rolling Stone and everything else. And they thought, this is the future of our party, because we're not going to be able to appeal to those hicks unless we have a guy that embodies the Democratic Party but is a white guy, because they think that conservatives are all racist and sexist. So he was their startup, and he's still banking on that. He's still got that money. His stock price has gone down, but he still has investors and backers.
All right, Tom Shillue at the front and back. If you want his tickets and schedule, his tour dates, go to TomShillue, SHILLUE.com. Check him out, as always, on Fox or on X. Tom, it's always great to talk to you, man. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
All right.